glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Ready to talk about linebackers in the NFL draft. And this is interesting because I think that there are a lot of linebackers that get a lot of attention, I think, pretty much around the league, and with a lot of content creators for sure. A couple of those guys I'm going to talk about in this episode, guys who are definitely potentially on the 49ers radar. And so I'm going to get into those guys. I'm going to talk about, a few guys that I think that would make a lot of sense for the 49ers in the mid rounds, because I think that's where I'm going to put my focus. So I'm not going to talk about, Geog Campbell or Jaylen Walker. Those dudes are studs. Those guys are first, round potential picks. And, I just don't think that the 49ers are potentially going to go that direction. I think it might be a little bit too rich to go linebacker there. But you still have to fill out your linebacker room. You still have to find guys that are going to be able to help your football team consistently win. And the 49ers have a need at linebacker. Now, depending on how you feel about D. Winters, that will go a long ways in determining how exactly you plan on approaching this draft. If you feel that D. Winters is capable of being the will linebacker starter, well, then linebacker might not be as high a priority early on in this draft. It might be a little bit later that you think about going linebacker. And we've seen the 49ers go with this sort of philosophy before. They had Fred Warner, they had Quan Alexander when they drafted Dre Greenlaw in round 5. Now, Greenlaw ended up making an impact in his rookie season and was never expected to be thrust into the starting lineup as the will linebacker, but that's exactly what happened when Quan Alexander had an injury. Dre Greenlaw never looked back. So you can find gems late in the draft. And how do we know? Well, Azeez Al-Shaair is another guy that you can get later. That could be an absolute gem for your football team. They got him as an undrafted free agent. So you can get guys late that can step in and make an impact on your football team. And so we're going to look at some of those guys in this episode. Guys that could potentially go in day 3, but could make an impact early on the 49ers. Now, there are a couple of names that I'm going to throw in towards the end that are guys that are probably going to be even later than that. And there's even more guys as we look, later into this draft that the 49ers could potentially strike on in round 7. There's some super athletic guys you could potentially get there. A guy like Ruben Hippolyte, who just ran a 4.3 at his pro day, which is ridiculous for a off-ball linebacker. But that's the kind of guy I'm going to talk about in a future episode. Some of those late round gems the 49ers could strike on. I think cornerback and linebacker are two positions the 49ers could go real late and still get a lot of potential of guys who could help their special teams. But in this one, we're going to try to keep it as mid-round as possible. Now, a couple of the names that you hear, you might not be very familiar with, or you've only heard them on this channel. And I'm going to try to keep talking about those guys and highlighting them. But this is going to be a fun one. I'm really excited to talk about linebacker. I'm excited to talk about San Francisco 49ers potentially hitting on some key players. So some of these guys you'll recognize, and I'm just going to get a little bit into my breakdown and how I feel about them. And then some of the guys you may not. And that's one of the fun things about the process, bringing guys into the fold that maybe you haven't heard of. So please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. So let's get into this. And there's lots of really good, fun players. And I want to start with Jeffrey Bosa. And I know that you've probably heard that name a ton. And I've even, talked about him a little bit when I did my video about the Oregon Pro Day. Jeffrey Bosa was one of the key guys that John Lynch talked to at the Pro Day that everyone got to see from the videos and pictures that came out. Now, the reason I want to talk about Bosa again is because I think that Bosa is a legitimate option for the 49ers when they get into the mid-rounds, whether that's, the pick 138 at the end of the 4th round. I think there's a lot of value for Bosa there. I think there's also a lot of value when you get to pick 147 and 160 that he could potentially go to the 49ers. And I think that 5th round pick 147, there would be tremendous value for Jeffrey Bosa. You're talking about a guy that's 6'1", 232 pounds. So fits the mold of a 49ers linebacker, a little undersized when you think about traditional linebackers in the NFL. But when you're talking about guys who just fit what the 49ers are looking for, this is it, right? Fred Warner is under 235 pounds. Like, that's kind of where he plays. Dre Greenlaw went close to 240, but still was considered undersized. So Bosa kind of fits the mold of a 49ers linebacker. Runs a 4.63 40. Plenty quick enough. That's right in the Fred Warner range. Now, if you're going to run a 4.6 as a linebacker, it does mean that your instincts have to be a little bit higher than others. You have to be able to read things a little bit faster to make up for the lack of speed when you're running sideline to sideline. Jeffrey Bosa has pretty good instincts, especially when it comes to pass route recognition, right? Pass concepts, those sort of things, getting into his drops. That's where I see Jeffrey Bosa excel. Those are the types of things that have made the 49ers go after former safeties that can now play linebackers because of their ability to evaluate what an offense is doing, see what sort of pass concept they're going to go with, and then know where to be at in their zone and their zone drops. And Jeffrey Bosa does that at a pretty high level. I'm a fan of him. He wasn't exactly like you're going to hear about some of these guys that we're going to talk about that had 100+ tackles. Jeffrey Bosa wasn't that kind of guy. But he's got all the athleticism you need when you're talking about, the straight ahead speed. I worry a little bit about change of direction. That's something that shows up on film as well, that he's probably going to have to continue to get better at. But when you're talking about his skills and his strengths, it starts with his coverage ability. And if you're looking for a potential will linebacker to come in and compete, and early on he would have to play Sam. I don't know if he could beat out D. Winters early. Winters very good in coverage, over a 75 grade last year, phenomenal. So Bosa would have to come in for that. He's got the ability to pick up the route combinations. He's got the ability to locate the concepts, which I talked about earlier. And I think those are some things that I really like. He's got good mechanics when it comes to the lower body, the read step. That's really good. His back pedal, his movement skills are really good. Then you throw in the flexibility. He's got pretty fluid hips when he's in his back pedal, and when he's able to move, that's going to help him in coverage as well, and gives you optimism about being able to move sideline to sideline, which I really like. Even though his testing wasn't well, he can direct at times. I think he redirects receivers a lot better than he redirects his body, and that's something he's going to have to get better at. But he can definitely communicate very well. He was good at picking up adjustments and being able to communicate that with his teammates, which I thought he did at a high level. So I think he'll be a solid player, especially in coverage, that's going to have to develop when it comes to stopping the run. And we've seen the 49ers go this direction. And as long as these guys have been willing to be physical, come downhill and smack you, they've been willing to kind of coach you up. Coach Johnny Hollins has been here. He's been the consistent. Of course, D'Amico Ryans early on was the teacher at linebacker, but we've seen the development of some players that have ended up being studs. Dre Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shire, just to name a couple, but even Fred Warner, who was a transition from safety to linebacker, we've seen him develop into a very good run stopper as well. So Bosa has the ability to do those as well. I think if you're looking at some of the things that you're worried about, it's the change of direction. The lateral quickness, how quickly will he be able to change direction? And then I think it's just some of the athleticism. Is he going to be athletic enough to consistently get it done? I think he can. I'm not as worried about him as probably a lot of people could be. So we'll see. He doesn't have great ball skills either, even though he's really good in coverage. But Jeffrey Bosa in the mid rounds is one of those guys that if you draft, because of his football IQ, he might be able to hit. And really do some damage for your football team. So I like Bosa, especially when you get into the late 4th, early 5th round. He could be a potential guy. Now, another player that I think the 49ers have a lot of interest in, he went to the local pro day, and he's been talked up pretty extensively around 49ers content creators. But, I haven't really talked about him a whole lot on the show. Me and John Chapman did an epic mock draft just the other day. That was with the 32 other podcasters, and we did select Teddy Buchanan. In fact, we tried to draft Jeffrey Bosa, and there was a mistake, and so Bosa got moved up and was already drafted early on. So we were a little frustrated with that, but we did land on Teddy Buchanan, and it was a good thing. Teddy Buchanan is a very solid player, and I love the fact that in these mock drafts right now, I'm less about who exactly you're taking, but more about that it brings awareness to who you're taking, and kind of gives everyone a thought process on who could be a target at certain spots. And Teddy Buchanan, kind of a little bit after Jeffrey Bosa, but that pick 160 would make a lot of sense. 6'2", 233 pounds, reaches the threshold for the 49ers, right? That 230 to 240 range for the linebacker that has athleticism. He does that for sure. He runs a 4.6 40, just like Jeffrey Bosa. He's a hair faster, actually. He had more success getting after the quarterback. Teddy Buchanan had 5 sacks last year. Really good blitzing linebacker, able to set the edge a little bit better than Jeffrey Bosa, which are advantages to him. He did have 114 tackles. So Bosa not as productive when it came to tackling. Teddy Buchanan is a tackling machine, formerly at UC Davis. Then he goes to Cal. This dude is hyper intelligent and able to get everything done that you need to get done. Now, we're talking about athleticism. This is the part that really gets you, excited. A 40-inch vertical leap, which is crazy. He's got a pretty good shuttle as well, a 4.27, which means he can move laterally and change direction. His bench press, 26 reps of 225. That's good. And his 10-yard split at 159. It's pretty good all around. So you got a guy that's explosive, that can get downhill, that can make plays in the backfield. And I think that's what you look for when it comes to run stopping. But Teddy Buchanan's another guy that's really good when it comes to coverage. He's able to process quickly. That's a thing that you have to have. Bosa does it, and also Teddy Buchanan does it. These are what make these guys 3-down linebackers and the potential to be able to help you on obvious pass downs and stay on the field in nickel, which means these are possible will linebackers, which I think in the NFL, that's what you're looking to draft. You're drafting guys who can play will linebacker. And if you have a will linebacker, you're looking for someone that backs them up or can play Sam, which means they're efficient enough in the run game to be in on base downs when the other team is more than likely going to run, come up and stop the run there, but still have the potential to cover, right? A perfect example of a guy that they thought could do that, but really he struggled a little bit, was Orrin Burks. And the Kansas City Chiefs took advantage of him, and also other teams took advantage of him in the playoffs. So that's something to remember when you're talking about these guys that have the ability to do it all. That's what made the 49ers linebacker group with Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw and Azeez Al-Shire so dangerous, was they could all tackle and play the run really well, but they also had plus ability when it came to coverage. So getting a guy like Teddy Buchanan or Jeffrey Bosa, it could be extremely impactful because they're good against the run, but they're really proficient when it comes to coverage. The Winter's struggle right now is stopping the run. So I think that that's something to remember when you're talking about these linebackers, and these are mid-round linebackers. These are guys you're getting in day 3 that can potentially come in and start day 1 as Sam linebacker. Now, I do believe that Tatum Bethune is going to have something to say about that. Now, Bethune is not a problem when it comes to stopping the run. Where his problem is he's not good when it comes to coverage. But if he could improve, he could be a very solid Sam linebacker for the 49ers. But let's talk about Teddy Buchanan a little bit more. Really good at angles. So he has good enough speed, 4.6, right? That's good enough. But when you are good at taking angles and getting downhill and angles is so important. You have windows that an offensive line is going to present. You as a linebacker have to locate those windows, get downhill, and fill those windows. And you'll hear people talk about filling the holes. Well, that's what you do as a linebacker. You fill those windows, you go through, you make a play. This is how you get negative plays. This is how you get plays for no gain, is by having good feel, taking good angles, getting downhill, and not reading a novel, but reading a short story. And I think Teddy Buchanan does that at a very high level. This dude is a plus blitzer. Same with Jeffrey Bosa. Both these guys can blitz really well. Teddy Buchanan finishes with the quarterback. He's got good discipline against the run, and he very rarely overruns his fits. So that's what I'm talking about. He knows when to find his windows. Read step, downhill, find window, boom. You're on the backside. You've got to be there for that cutback lane. He's a guy that'll stay home. Read step, read it, step into your window and stay home. He does that really well. I like Teddy Buchanan's ability to read run, but also be very proficient when it comes to pass coverage. I think he's very good. He's got a good recognition of underneath routes. So this is a guy, you got crossers, you got mesh concepts. This dude recognizes them really well. He knows how to stay with multiple receivers in his area. So in zone coverage, you're covering an area, you're not covering a man. Now, there are times where you kind of have to filter into one man. and stick on him. But Teddy Buchanan has a good feel for all of it. Another guy that's going to be a great special teams player, Bosa, Teddy Buchanan. When you get drafted in the mid rounds like this, you have to be good when it comes to special teams. And Teddy Buchanan would be a stud when it comes to that. Now, one of the things you're going to see with the guys we're talking about and late, they're not good of disengaging against offensive linemen consistently. Stack and shed ability isn't there. That doesn't mean you can't be a very good linebacker in the NFL. Stacking and shedding is difficult. You have to be extremely powerful up top. Buchanan does have that ability because of his strength, but a lot of the times what you want to do is be an avoidance linebacker, a guy that uses moves and techniques or dips underneath offensive linemen, uses their quickness, uses their recognition skills to get where they need to get to make the plays that they need to play. So I think that is one thing that's going to be okay for Buchanan and Bosa is their ability to avoid and get downhill and make, and that's that recognition skills that are going to play into that. However, you do worry about also how quickly he's going to move laterally. I think he's a better lateral mover than Bosa, but that is definitely something that is considered a problem. And with all these linebackers that the 49ers get, you're going to find that these guys are considered undersized, less strength than the normal linebacker. But the 49ers predicate everything on speed, flying around, being plus in coverage, which in the NFL right now, coverage is huge, right? You're a nickel 70% of the time, but you have to be good enough to tackle and make plays in space. I think Teddy Buchanan would be a solid pick, especially if you got to 147, 160. I don't think he's that far behind Jeffrey Bosa. I think these two dudes are pretty much ranked near each other, and I'd be okay going either direction. Now, another player, and this guy, it's funny because I'm a fan of him, but I think that there's a lot of criticism that comes with being a fan of Danny Stutsman. The reason I'm a fan of Danny Stutsman is the way that he handles stopping the run. Danny Stutsman is one of the best run stoppers in this entire draft, and I would argue his read and recognition skills and his run fits is probably the best in this draft. And that's one thing that I'm drawn to as a guy that likes to evaluate linebackers is that ability to stop the run, because if you can stop the run, it makes things a lot easier for your defense. Danny Stutsman actually surprised me with some of his testing, because when you watch the film, you don't see a 4.5 guy, but he ran a 4.52. That means Danny Stutsman at 6'3", 233, which is basically the exact size of Fred Warner, is faster than Fred Warner. And I think a lot of times people think he's slower, and I think me included, because he has the neck brace on, right? But, this dude can absolutely move, and I like him. I like his skills to be able to read, do the things you need to do. He had 110 tackles, 44 of those solo, and the 4.52, 34-inch vertical leap, which isn't explosive. He's not a superior athlete, but here's the part that it makes him a really good linebacker in the box: a 1.55 10-yard split. That's the part that makes him so impressive, is from here to there, he's so good about getting downhill, the recognition skills, and then enough burst and speed to get downhill and make tackles. That's why I like him. I wrote about his recognition and reaction time when it comes to diagnosing plays is next level. His pre-snap reads are phenomenal. You can tell he understands what's coming by formation. He does his homework. He's a football IQ guy. That I like about him. He also flows and takes the proper angles. We talked about it with Teddy Buchanan. Danny Stutsman is one of those guys that does it as well. And he needs the angles. Even though he's faster than Buchanan, it seems like he's not as fast on film. We'll see if that translates. So I do want to say that now. Maybe he's going to play a little bit faster. Maybe he's got his body into better shape. We'll see. But he also plays with great aggression. He finishes tackles. If he meets running backs in the hole, he usually finishes, which is a great sign for what could be considered an undersized linebacker in the NFL. His trigger is fantastic. So you take your read step and then you've got a trigger downhill instantly. Some linebackers have it, some guys don't. Actually, coming out of the draft in 2019, people didn't believe Dre Greenlaw had that trigger. Go back and read some of the draft discussions about Greenlaw. I wasn't breaking down draft picks at the time, but that was a big conversation point about Dre Greenlaw, was he was slow to diagnose, slow to pull the trigger. We saw later on in his career that wasn't the case. Well, Danny Stutsman, that's not even a concern. when it comes to read, reaction, pulling that trigger, going downhill, taking the angle, filling his window, he's superb. He really is superb. That's why I really enjoy watching his film. I think he does a very good job. He's a good blitzer. That's also something that he does well. He's got good moves when it comes to technique, being able to shed blocks with rips, being able to get into the backfield is pretty good. He gets some negative plays, which I like to see. And that's what you got to see when you're handling a linebacker. Now, I think he's better in coverage than most people think. I think he's fluid in space and is able to kind of stick with tight ends and running backs for the most part. I do think that in zone coverage, I'd like to see him get a little bit better feel. His drops need to be a little bit cleaner. I don't think he's the most fluid hip guy when it comes to his drops. I think Buchanan and Bosa are better in that area. But I think he's good enough that he could get even better. When he squares you up, he absolutely lights you up. That's one thing that I wrote down. He just is a guy that hits you hard and makes plays. He's able to navigate traffic as one of the best that I've seen. That's one of the things I love about him is you see him flow, make somebody miss, come around and hit somebody in the hole. And you're like, where did Danny Stutsman come from? You watch the play over again and you see it. The dude just has a good feel for where he needs to be and how to get there. There's just an innate ability that some linebackers have to do that, and he's one of those guys, right? These are the Navarro, Bowman, Patrick Willis skills. Now, can Danny Stutsman do that in the NFL? That's another question. But those are the type of things that those linebackers did so well. Danny Stutsman is not Navarro Bowman. He's not Patrick Willis. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that innate ability to weave through traffic and make plays, that's a skill that guys like that have, right? Other guys had Mike Singletary. There's even just, more solid linebackers. I'm just giving some examples. Even a guy like Gary Plummer was really good in that category, or Bill Romanowski. So those things. He's a very good high-level IQ guy, which I love. The special teams is going to be there. That's what you have to have. Now, with the other two guys, you had the worries about change of direction. Danny Stutsman, same thing. A little bit of a nervousness when it comes to change of direction. That's not his game. He's more of a guy that gets downhill and just hits you in the hole. His zone drops, like I said, that's a little bit of a problem. Can sometimes get flat-footed, doesn't have the hip flexibility, and so he needs to get a little bit better with that. Also, some of the things that he does when it comes to stack and shed is a problem as well. But he's a really, really fun player. I like him a lot. A guy that I talk about all the time, so I'm going to do like a little brief thing, but I think he's going to go in this range, is Chandler Martin. So Chandler Martin is a 6 foot tall, and some people have him at 5'11", 229-pound linebacker out of Memphis. And if you have the opportunity, I'm not telling you to go watch a Memphis film, but if you have the opportunity, go watch a highlight video of Chandler Martin. This dude is a sideline-to-sideline monster that absolutely thumps you. He's got the ability to play will linebacker in the NFL. He's got good coverage skills. He's an absolute beast when it comes to blitzing. This dude should be a mid-round pick that a lot of people have going 7th round. So just go ahead and check him out. I didn't want to do a full breakdown on him because I've talked about him a lot. And there's full breakdowns over on Patreon of some of these guys. And I'm continuing to add. I'm going to add a lot of linebackers this week. That's kind of the process that I'm working on. So go check those guys out. Chandler Martin, there's a breakdown of him over on Patreon with a deep look. But I think Chandler Martin is a legit option for the 49ers in the mid-rounds. And he would make sense for the 49ers the way that he plays and the way that he goes sideline to sideline. When he pulls the trigger, this dude absolutely smacks you. He reminds me a lot of Azeez Al-Shire in the way that he plays. So that would be my player comp for him. He's fun. Go check him out. Undersized, yeah. Stack and shed problems, yes. Absolute thumper, absolute playmaker, absolute beast, yes. I mean, that's just something that he does at a high level. So go check out Chandler Martin, and you'll really enjoy the film and the highlight video. But let's talk about Smael Mondon out of Georgia. 6'2", 224 pounds, a little bit more undersized than the other linebackers we've talked about, who have all been over 230 pounds, even Chandler Martin right at 230 pounds. Ran a 4.58 40, extremely athletic, 3 sacks playing in Georgia, but a fun film. You see him flying around, the athleticism through the roof, 10-yard split of 1.52. Are you kidding me? We talked about Danny Stutsman being a 1.55. That's impressive. But top 95 percentile, the broad jump 130, which shows that explosiveness for Mondon. This dude absolutely flies around. And that's what you're going to get is the exceptional athleticism. How much can you turn that into a very skilled player on the field? I think that's the question. I think there's a lot to work with, but this is a moldable clay that you see athleticism. And that's something that the 49ers have taken where we can take the super hyper athlete and turn them into a solid linebacker for our football team. And I think Mondon fits into that category. That's the first thing that you see that jumps off the film is the sideline to sideline pursuit speed from Mondon. He absolutely flies around. He's got good hips. And so that is a thing that I love in coverage. Whenever you have the fluid hips and it's not so tight, that's one of the things I worry about with Stutsman when it comes to zone coverage, those fluid hips being able to drop, and then the kind of spatial awareness. Mondon does that at a high level, which allows him to mirror receivers and kind of mirror those breaking routes out on the outside, which I think he's very good at. He's got disciplined eyes in the zone, which was huge to see. Love that. He's very instinctive when it comes to where he's supposed to go and where he's supposed to be. He understands the job at hand, and he's able to do that. He can also blitz pretty well and create pressures. This is a guy like Chandler Martin that is a sideline to sideline speed demon that he can get out there. And, he's not that much. That's what's crazy. He's not actually that much faster than Bosa or Teddy Buchanan. It's like a half a step. But this dude absolutely flies around. He just looks so fast out there. Good awareness out in space. Does a good job with that. He's also able to take precise angles, which is one of the things you have to be a linebacker. For the 49ers, you just have to be good with your angles, and he does it at a high level. I like him a lot. The question marks for him, and part of the reason that he's probably going to be, down in this range, maybe even a little bit further, are some of the durability concerns because he's had injuries in his past, including injuries in 3 consecutive seasons. And it's all lower body injuries, foot, ankle, and so on. Those are some things that are going to, be worrisome. I think when you're looking at also his frame, what is he going to do with 224 pounds? Is he able to put on the extra 6 to 8 pounds of muscle? And yes, that is extremely important when you're talking about taking on blockers. So right now he has to completely rely on getting underneath those guys, beating them to their spots, relying on his speed and able to navigate through that second level traffic to get where he needs to get. Sometimes he gets caught up in it. That's a little bit of concern. But when you're talking about a next level athlete that can absolutely run, that has the basis to be a solid linebacker in the NFL that you can build upon, Mondon is one of those guys. So he's a fun prospect for the 49ers late. Now, another guy I want to talk about, and I brought him up a little bit over the last few days, but I want this guy to start getting into people's minds, so I'm going to talk about him here. I normally would have waited for my linebacker gem video because I do think there's so many guys late in this draft that are going to be interesting. But when you're talking undersized, former safety prospects, you're talking about Jaylen Walker out of Indiana. And no, not Jaylen Walker from Georgia, but Jaylen Walker out of Indiana. 6'1", over 200 pounds. He's going to be like Mondon, about 224 pounds. Not exactly built for size. But when you watch this dude on film, he's absolutely explosive. He's a 4'4", 40 guy. This guy can move. He's got speed. He's fast and explosive, which makes it hard for him to be blocked. Now, he'll line up on the edge. He'll line up off ball. He has those kinds of skills. He's definitely got to get a little bit stronger, got to get a little bit, more built for what's going to happen. But this is a linebacker who's built like a safety who can cover in space. That's what reminds me so much of what the 49ers are looking for. And that's why when I'm honing in on linebackers, I'm not going for what I would normally go for, right? That's not what I'm doing here. I'm trying to look through the 49ers lens. And what do we know about them? Former safeties that play linebacker who can cover in space, that have the speed is what it is. Right? That's why if you're talking about guys that I really love, Danny Stutsman, I like the physicality, stepping up and stopping the run. He's got enough athleticism that made him worthy to talk about. But for the most part, 49ers like this kind of player, like Jaylen Walker, that can do that. He's got the ability to spy. He does that at a high level. He can definitely get downhill and stop the run. He's very physical. He finds his way into his windows pretty consistently. And I think he could be a good will linebacker in the NFL because of his spatial awareness and being able to cover. He's got good short area agility, so he changes direction very well. And there's a couple other guys I can't wait to talk about over the next couple weeks that do the same thing. He's got a quick burst. He's able to stick with mobile quarterbacks. You go back and you watch him on film, he can spy. He can get those things done. He's a good tackler. He's also going to be a phenomenal special teams player. All these guys we've talked about, they're all special teams studs, which make them good mid-round draft picks. You have to be good on special teams if you were going to join the 49ers as a mid-round linebacker, because you have to be able to develop. He does a very good job watching the quarterback's eyes in zone coverage, which I thought were good. Now, the weaknesses for him, it's going to be the slim frame. I mean, the fact he's so small, he's not built like other linebackers, so he's probably going to have to get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Right now, where he's going to go, people are looking to draft him in 7th round, maybe even undrafted free agent. I would be willing to throw a 7th round pick at him and let him kind of marinate as you work him to be one of those better players, right? Developing Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, he's Al-Shire. Those were guys that you got as undrafted free agents. I think Jaylen Walker would be an absolute stud. Now, another thing I don't love about him, his tackling contact, the way that he tackles is not great. He doesn't keep his eyes up when he tackles, which could make it difficult for him to see movements from a running back. So he's got to get better with his tackling technique. That can get better. And I think that when you're talking about his strength, it needs to get better. That's why I've been talking about him putting on more size, 6 to 8 pounds of muscle, and try not to lose any of that speed. I think that would make him really good when it comes to playing in the NFL. So this is a hyper athlete who's a lot of projection, not expecting him to go mid-round, but in those later rounds, you get to round 7, and you start looking at a guy with plus athleticism who you think you can develop into a consistent linebacker. Maybe in the 5th round, you take a guy like Teddy Buchanan or Jeffrey Bosa, and then later on in this draft, you take a Jaylen Walker who's got all the athleticism in the world that can absolutely run. This dude is a sideline-to-sideline demon, and you see what you got. Then you've got more balance, right? You've got the guys like Tatum Bethune, who's not the quick runner, but you've got D. Winters, who is the explosive athlete. Then you get a guy like Bosa, who's a plus linebacker, but maybe not the explosive athlete. Then you get a Jaylen Walker, who is. It's finding that ability to get guys who have elite traits. And Jaylen Walker's elite trait is that he can absolutely run, and he's really good in coverage. So he was a fun prospect. There's more guys, of course, that we can talk about as this process goes on. I can't believe we're getting there. The draft is almost here. It's going to be here in no time. I hope you guys will all join us for the draft party. I'm going to be with John Chapman for the Rush draft party. It's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, day one, you're going to have Diamond Lenore out there. So if you want to meet him, go to 49ersrushroadtrip.com and get your tickets for the meet and greet with Diamond Lenore. The Hyena is going to be there. I'm going to be there as well. I'm sure the Hyena is a lot more appealing to meet than I am, but it's going to be a good time. We're going to be enjoying day one of the draft. And then day 2, come out, and we're going to be going live, and we're going to be talking through these picks. It's going to be John Chapman, his buddy Chuck, who does it every year. I got to work with Chuck last year. Fantastic guy. And then myself. We're going to rotate through. We're going to have a lot of fun being up on stage, talking about the picks in real time as they happen. And you can be there too, joining us at Broadway Studios in San Francisco for the Rush Road Trip. Hope you guys will all check that out. It's a lot of fun. Go to 49ersrushroadtrip.com and get your tickets. $20 entry. Kids come free with a paid adult. And then, of course, Diamond Lenore is a special price, just so you know, for the meet and greet. But you get to meet the Hyena, so that is a pretty cool thing. So please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. Please give it a 5-star rating. And if you got more linebackers, hit me up in the comment section. I know there's guys like Jay Higgins and others that I want to talk about. I had to kind of leave them out for this episode. I didn't have time, but I'm hoping to get to more of those guys. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.